Well, it's a time of year that brings a smile to the faces of baseball fans everywhere. Pitchers and catchers reporting for duty at sites across Florida and Arizona. I know that's the case with this guy, Hall of Fame baseball writer Jayson Stark. Jayson, great to see you again to talk a little baseball.
Chet, how are you, my friend?
I am awesome. Hey, let's focus on the Phillies, first of all. They didn't make any huge player moves over the winter, but they did pick up outfielder Max Kepler and a couple of pitchers, too. Lefty starter Jesus Luzardo and righty reliever Jordan Romano. Are they any better now than the team that got eliminated by the Mets in the NLDS in October?
I don't think you can say they're better. They're certainly not definitively better. It's safe to say Jesus Luzardo is a pretty significant upgrade over Taijuan Walker. Okay, but there is that. The other thing is they're built to win. Regardless of whether they are better, they're still one of the handful of teams that I think are capable of winning the World Series, and it starts with that rotation.
Are you surprised that both Alec Bohm and Brandon Marsh are still Phillies? And what do you expect from Bohm this year?
Okay, Brandon Marsh, not so much. I don't think they were aggressively shopping him. I do think that there was a point this winter where they did want to trade Alec Bohm, but always valued him as an all-star and not somebody you just trade just to say you did. And they couldn't find that match. They couldn't find something that worked for them financially, baseball-wise. So I think he's one of the most interesting figures to watch in spring training. Not so much in the sense of how we've watched him the last few years. Is he going to hit more home runs? Is he better defensively? I think it's really how does he handle this moment? The two things that he's got to handle are being a human trade rumor all winter and knowing it, no matter how much they tried to run from that. And the second was getting benched in October in a must-win game, right? After they'd lost game one. That sent a lot of red flags, I think, throughout the industry. It certainly sent some messages to teams that might have been interested in trading for him that they better do a little more digging.
Bryson Stott had a subpar 2024. And Trea Turner, though he hit 295, I think can still be better, both offensively and certainly defensively. Is it right to expect more from both Stott and Turner in 2025?
Yeah, I think they need more. For this offense to take another step, to be as good as we've seen it at its best, Trea Turner has to be better. He was signed to be better. His track record is better. He was having an amazing year before he blew out the hamstring. If you remember, he was hitting 340, came back, hit 10 home runs in July, 10. And then, I don't know, he gets himself out. He reverts to that guy who chases at a clip we've never seen him chase in his career. He's always been a little swing happy, but I think you'll see an effort this spring, both by him and by the hitting coaches, to get him to be more disciplined. And then Bryson Stott just got to figure out who he is. I think he's a guy with extremely high baseball IQ and a ton of upside, star power upside. But the thing that they tried to do with him last year, which is have him be more aggressive in counts, it confused him. And he's got to figure out exactly what's the best approach for him at the plate.
I didn't even mention Bryce Harper yet. He hit 285 with 30 homers last year. More of the same this year, do you think?
I don't see why not. If Bryce stays healthy, I still think there's even a bigger year in there for him. I've thought for a long time Bryce could hit 50 homers in this park. He's got Gold Glove ability at first base. He was the best all-around first baseman really in the sport last year. Maybe Freddie Freeman has an argument on that, but there are only two first basemen in baseball who slugged 500 last year. Bryce was one of them. Very short list of first basemen who hit 30 homers. Combine that with how good he is in October, assuming the Phillies get back to October, and how incredibly comfortable he's gotten at first base, and I think impactful defensively. There's actually more in the tank for Bryce. I think he's on a Hall of Fame track.
True or false? It'll be someone other than Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot in most games this year.
Can I answer to be determined? I like Kyle Schwarber hitting first. I understand you'd like him to hit all those home runs with somebody on base instead of nobody on base. Here's a little tidbit for you to digest, Chet. Which National League player reached base more times out of the leadoff spot than any other last year? The answer, Kyle Schwarber. And
I love that.
what are you looking for from a leadoff man?
Yeah,
That would
get a
be
base.
up on the list, right?
Absolutely. Well, one real strength we know is the starting rotation. Pretty good five with Andrew Painter likely to be added to the mix this summer. What do you think about these guys?
Yeah, they're certainly in the argument for best rotation in baseball. Yeah, I got into a conversation a week or so ago with another general manager from another team, and this is kind of what we concluded. The Phillies have 5 starting pitchers, not even counting Andrew Painter, who you would feel comfortable starting game 1 of a postseason series. Do the Mets have any? I'm not sure the Mets have any. The Mets are they've signed Juan Soto. They're going for it. The division is a monster, but the Phillies win the who has the best rotation conversation, if healthy, with any of the teams in the NL East and maybe any team in baseball. Mariners are in the argument. I think the Dodgers, obviously, in terms of depth of potential impact starters, they're in that argument. You could throw a couple of others in there, but if you're trying to win the World Series and you have a rotation as good as the Phillies, that seems like a good formula to me.
Jayson, you wrote a great in-depth piece last week for The Athletic comparing NFL parity to Major League Baseball parity. Your point was, I guess, that while a lot of folks consider baseball to be, broken with the big spending teams dominating, there's actually been far more parity in baseball than in football this century.
Yeah, I've done this one before, Chet. All this drumbeat for a salary cap, and baseball needs a salary cap to have more competitive balance. And I don't think so. I went back to 2001 and looked at basically the Brady era, the Mahomes era. There's a little Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger in there. In the AFC, Brady, Mahomes, Big Ben, Peyton Manning have been the quarterback in 21 of the last 23 Super Bowls for the AFC. And people like to think that the reason the NFL is that any team can win league is because of the cap. In fact, it's because of the quarterback. The quarterback is just a dominant position in that sport, unlike any we see in baseball. And I think the other thing that I tried to prove was they're really not the any team can win league. The same teams go back to the playoffs year after year after year after year. Is Buffalo on the list? Sure. Is Kansas City on the list? Sure. That's a little different than what we see in baseball. And yet there were 3 AL Central teams in the playoffs last year, and none of them even had a winning record the year before. So I love poking holes in the NFL's arrogance on this front. So I did it again.
Speaking of the NFL, I know we're both very happy about the Eagles Super Bowl win the other night, a dominating one, but we're not going to get into that. I do want to ask you about the National League this year. Who's going to win the East? Is it going to be the Mets, Braves, or Phillies, or somebody else? And can anybody beat the Dodgers and get to the World Series?
Well, answer to the last question, yeah, of course. I know it seems like they're a super team. I know it seems like this is potentially the greatest team of our lifetimes. Considering this is a sport where nobody has even won 2 World Series in a row since 2000, why would we not take the field? Okay, so there's all of that. Who's going to win the NL East? I was very interested in the Fangraphs Pacoda projections that popped last week because they had the Braves 1, Mets 2, Phillies 3, all playoff teams. In fact, 4 of the top 5 teams in baseball were in the National League, and 3 of those 4 from the NL were Phillies, Braves, Mets. I don't see where the Mets or Braves qualify as being definitively better than the Phillies. The Braves, if healthy, obviously that's a potential monster team. But how do we know they'll be healthy? Ronald Acuna Jr. is coming off MCL tears in both knees. Spencer Strider, it's his second UCL surgery now in just a handful of years. Don't know what he's going to be. Do you feel pretty safe in saying Chris Sale will be back to being a Cy Young workhorse again? I don't. Ronaldo Lopez transitioning from the bullpen. What is he? They lost Charlie Morton. They lost Max Fried. I think there's a lot of questions about the Braves pitching, and we've kind of been through the Mets. It's a dangerous team, and yet did they just ride the magic carpet in October? It felt like they did. Is that the team they are over the long haul? A lot of questions about that pitching group too. So I think on paper, the Phillies are better than either of those teams, but anybody could win in the NL East. All three of them are really good.
Final thing, I just want to mention, Jayson, that it was fun seeing you at that great sports debate reunion and fundraiser event at Puddler's Kitchen and Tap in November. And heck, I even got to do a brief interview with you that somehow ended up on Glenn's What's Brewing show. That was very cool. And I want to ask, how does it feel to have your mug on a great sports debate beer can? Looking good, man.
It's pretty bizarre. All the cool achievements that I've had. In the writers' wing of the Baseball Hall of Fame, went in the National Sports Writers Hall of Fame last year. Getting my face plastered on a beer can, that's right up there with anything. It's a pretty good conversation piece in my house. Would you like a beer? I got a beer for you. People love to look at what I looked like in the 90s and laugh, and I don't blame them. You can't.
And I got all four of you to autograph it, which is very cool. Hey, follow this guy on X, the former Twitter, at JaysonST. Read him in The Athletic. Check out the Starkville podcast that he does with Doug Glanville. Jayson, thank you and enjoy the season.
Chet, thank you, man. Always good to talk to you.